Hi everybody, welcome to Living La Vita Loca podcast. My name is Fazz.
And I'm choking. And I'm Rich.
We are constantly... I was going to try really hard to be professional about this start of this pod. I was going to go...
Sorry, I've
this is
ruined it
Living La
already.
Vita Loca podcast, a retro gaming podcast for a little bit of your retro gaming needs.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Choke now. Forever hold your peace.
Jumped the gun, didn't I?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, we'll live. Anyway, so that is what we are, and that is who we are. Welcome to episode 20.
20?
20, great! We made it to 20.
Hooray.
That's usually, like, that. We said that, didn't we? That's like the lifespan of most podcasts, or so I've been told, so...
Is it?
Like, I've heard a thing.
that somewhere.
I've heard a thing, 20 episodes is kind of when you die, so...
Oh, right, well...
I mean, the choking.
Hence the choking.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's good.
As soon as we start the podcast, man down. Oh, well. Yeah, so this week is going to be a bit of a different one. In fact, I guess the next couple of podcasts we're going to do a little bit different one because we've got our free play podcast coming up in a week, and then we've got this one where we're not going to be just solely talking about our PSP, PS Vita games that we have been playing, but we are going to look at something that is extremely related to PS Vita, and that is Rich's PSTV that he proudly
It's a
homes.
Vita in a little box that sits under your telly, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
in it.
Yeah.
Cool. So why don't we talk a little bit about handheld gaming anyway? And I'm going to talk a little bit about something I picked up in the Amazon Prime Day sale, which was a Razer Kishi. Kishi?
Like a quiche,
quiche.
like.
Is that just how
It's
children
like
say
quiche.
quiche? Yeah. Or maybe it is a quiche.
A Razer quiche.
Favorite type of quiche?
Oh, I mean, can you ever really have a favourite, or do you just tolerate them? I mean, quiche Lorraine is the one that I always end up going for, but it's just cheese and bacon in it, so it's like in pastry.
Quiche is weird because I feel like it's everything that I love, but I very rarely have them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not I'm not rushing
You
out
never
to
sit
get
there
a quiche.
going, oh, I'm really in the mood for a quiche.
Yeah, you never are. It's just like, but if one turns up on your plate at like a wedding or something, you're like,
Oh, yeah, you don't throw it at a wall,
yeah,
do
like,
you?
great, I've got a
Yeah,
quiche.
yeah.
I think
Welcome to Living La Vita Quiche.
I think quiche. I think it's just I think it's a bonus food. That's what I think it is. Bonus food quiche. It's a collectible.
Yeah, that's probably the best way of looking at it, really, isn't it? It's never really the main event.
Much like this podcast.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
The Razer Kishi. So, Razer, they develop, or seem to have developed, handheld controllers that you actually physically plug into your phone.
Nice.
So I previously had attempted to, tether my phone via a little clip to my Xbox controller and then play it via Bluetooth. And that seemed to work okay. So that was when we first had, I guess, Game Pass as a remote feature. And very early on when you had remote play, and actually you didn't, even on the Game Pass app, it wasn't as if you could play the games on there. It was the very first sort of way you could play, Xbox games on there. And so that worked fine, but I snapped that. That's what happened.
Was that out of rage?
No.
Or was that just wear and tear? Or?
I think I sat on it, or someone sat on it, or it basically just broke. But that was like £10.
Yeah.
And I was gutted because I was like, oh, I quite like the idea of being able to do remote play. But it was really quite heavy when you held the Xbox controller in your hand, and the clip was attached to the back of the Xbox controller, and then you basically had the phone on top of that, and that kind of like, it felt like the phone was weighing you down when you had the controller in your hand.
I had something similar for the PS4 once upon a time, and you kind of had like a sucker thing for your phone and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm the sucker thing for my phone.
Hey.
So, that works fine. But and I like the idea of having especially with Game Pass, that you have all these games that are handheld, that you can now, the selection of cloud gaming, so you don't have to download them, so you can play them remotely, which is great, just straight on your phone, like just streaming Xbox. Or there is also the remote play option where you can to some extent play remote play, which, well, I say to some extent you can play remote play, but you do obviously have the latency lag of going through your Xbox and then it coming to your phone via your Wi-Fi, depending on how good your Wi-Fi is. I should have really took Virgin Media up on that offer they were offering me the other day. It was like
hindsight.
Well, I don't need it, but they were like, "Oh, how about that gigabyte download to speed?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm like, I'm like, oh my, what, like, is it a gigabyte? No, it must be more than that. Wait, no, probably is a gigabyte.
I mean, I have no idea. I don't know what they were trying to sell me. I live in a different house.
Do you now? Okay.
Unless there's something you want to tell me.
I've been here a while. So, where was I? Anyway, and it was, and then also the fact that you can now play quite a few games touchscreen as well. So, yeah, so you don't even have to have a controller necessarily.
Yeah.
But you can play quite a few of them. I would say that it really strains and stretches the idea of doing that, though. That is, to have the controller on your screen, depending on the size of your phone and things, I think you really would need to have a tablet for that, I think.
So many buttons to account for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you are crossing the veneer. I'm going to use that word and not really think that's what I need to call. I need to say there. Insert word here.
Yep.
Bridge between PC gaming and tablet gaming and console gaming. You're kind of like it's weird.
The line's getting blurred a little bit.
Yeah. I feel a bit weird talking about it now. I feel like I'm now just a PC gamer on my phone. But no fear, because I bought a controller that attaches to your phone and makes you feel more like you're holding a Nintendo Switch now. And that's exactly how it feels. So it cost me £35 in the Amazon Prime sale. It was down from £65. And I think at the turn of the year it was about £100. I think a Backbone, which is possibly the most popular brand that I've heard of these types of controllers, they're still about £100. So to get this for £35 and it to feel like a very useful tool for me to go forward with and play games, and one of the games that I've started playing for our free play for next week, I've actually I used this, and I used it on purpose to kind of see how this game would work. It's an Xbox game and it's on Game Pass, and you could play it on remote play. So it just seemed to be really sturdy, really useful. The buttons that you get, the clicky thumbsticks.
Nice.
It feels like a actually well built controller that plugs straight into your USB. No, what is it? No, universal port in a phone.
USB thing. Yeah.
And to connect it. And you also have the ability, once you've done that, you can actually, if you say, obviously you're worried about your phone battery, you can plug it into the mains and you can charge your phone via the controller as well.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Stays out of your way, so actually it becomes, even if you have to be like that and you want to sit and play at home, or you want to sit and play on a train or something like that, and you need that, that battery boost, then you can actually do that, which is great. So,
someone's thought about that, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. So that really helps. But yeah, I guess it just it lasts as long as your phone battery is going to last you, which obviously varies on what you're playing. But yeah, all the buttons are great, and I think it's really added to my gaming experience, and it has made this gen consoles of better graphics in terms of how they look HD, more handheld, and if anything, it looks better than a Switch. That is not physically, that is in but like in terms of what you're playing on the screen. Yeah. That is in graphically better than a Switch.
Well, it's got the extra horsepower, I guess.
Yeah. So, and if you've got therefore quite a big phone and you've got a brand new phone, I would highly recommend picking this up if you have, something like Game Pass or PS Play. Do you know what I mean? Like, I assume it's the exact same sort of. Well, in fact, I know it is. Like from what I saw from the adverts and things, the exact same concept. So, I just highly recommend it to everybody if you do get an opportunity to get one at a low price such as £35 and you want to play more handheld gaming and you want to take things on the go with you, and it also folds up really nice and neatly, so you unconnect it from your phone and then literally it folds back in on itself and connects together, so it almost becomes this really compact, safe brick, so you feel like you're not going to break it when you're taking it with you anywhere or anything. And it's almost like you could probably I mean, it'd be a bit clunky. You know, we'd probably need our skater jeans with those chains on from an earlier episode. Like, it'd be clunky to put in your pocket, certainly. But you could, in theory, if you had, like, you know, a jacket pocket.
You could travel with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, just a great concept. And I know they're a couple of years old now, the idea of them. But to move on from that clip on the back of your controller to this point where you have the phone within your controller and you have all these games at your disposal. Yeah, it's really revolutionised almost in a way. I'm not going to go to the point where I'm saying it's a necessity, but I feel like I've added a different dimension of gaming to my home. Like, so, for example, you know, people talk about Tetris Effect. Have you played Tetris Effect before? No. So everyone talks about Tetris Effect being one of the best Tetris games, and you know, a lot of people would have played it on the console, and you kind of, and everyone goes, the audio and visual vibe of sort of putting yourself in a darkened room and playing on this game, and the music, the way it kind of soothes you, but also you get that electro beat vibe while you're playing Tetris. It puts you into sort of some sort of hypnosis, pretty much. Like everyone kind of like, you know, like everyone like raves about Tetris Effect. But then transferring that to VR and being consumed by the experience in a world really jumps up. And it almost feels like you're kind of getting that from this. Like, I'm taking a games console and making it portable on a really high definition screen on a really tactile controller. It really feels like I'm just enhancing that experience a lot more. Like, so yeah, it's great. I mean, you know, you can't even, might even get to the point where you kind of go, do I even need the home console if I'm paying for Game Pass and I've got my phone? I mean, obviously, if you...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You almost go, ooh.
But, I mean, I guess that's where, you know, cloud gaming wants to be heading, really, isn't it? But then I guess that's also the kind of feeling, the kind of market that Sony want to tap into with their handheld thing. Just, you know, without it plugging onto any old phone, it's already got a screen built in and all that kind of stuff. So I guess between that and the current controllers, bells and whistles, that's kind of what they're going for. But it sounds like Razer have already kind of cracked it.
Well, it just feels it just feels like, I mean, I guess you're going to... Depends how much Sony charge for theirs, and people will buy it, obviously. It's just the way that the world goes round. People will see a nice, shiny thing and go for it. But I know we've questioned it previously, where they think it's going to be a good idea, especially if it's just something that plays your PS4, but PS5 even, sorry. I don't know, I guess PS4 maybe as well. I mean, I can't imagine.
Sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, but... Anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd just share that with you because I know you're going to talk about something that is, I guess, peripheral.
Goes the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the opposite. So, but I just wanted to kind of give it a bit of a plug, really. I mean, I'm not like, you know, selling anything for anybody, but certainly.
Incidentally, Razer, if you want to sponsor us, I really like your fight pads. So
so send us a quiche, please. I'll take Lorraine as well. That's fine by me. So anyway. Yeah, I just wanted to get that in there and just sort of say, you know, guys, if you're interested in that kind of thing, I'd recommend it.
Rated.
Yeah, there we go. Should I give it an average number?
Yeah, go for it. Why not? I'll stick it on the spreadsheet later on.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, for paying that sort of, you know, that amount of money for it and stuff, and what I feel like I'm going to get out of it, and what I've experienced from playing a couple of games on there, I can only give it a 9, really. You know, that is in, I can't. I've got no qualms with it at the moment. Unless something goes wrong, I reserve the right to go back on that.
It again by sitting on
exactly. I reserve the right to go back on that. But for now,
right,
that's where we're heading.
The Razer Quiche will be going on as 9 out of 10.
I mean, coincidentally, like a Razer Quiche would be
awful.
It's pretty dangerous. First off, the eggs wouldn't be able to hold it. It'd just be cutting itself to pieces within seconds. Cool. So
right,
that was the
plug.
That was the hors d'oeuvre. That was, you know.
Now for the main course.
Yeah. What is you? What is you?
I am going to be covering the PlayStation TV, and I've got a prop. That's it.
Wow.
So what I have just slapped on the desk in front of...
Can I measure it in party rings?
Or your phone.
No, party rings.
Party rings. Yeah, so that's looking like a...
It's like 3.5 party rings.
Yeah. maybe 4 if you stacked them cleverly. It's not a big device.
No. I'll take my party rings off it.
Thank you.
I apologise.
That's right.
I'm going to eat a party ring while you talk.
But, so yeah, it basically takes a PS Vita, gets rid of the screen and the controls, so the opposite of what you just did to your phone. Pops an HDMI output in their USB and an Ethernet port as well for grown-up big boy internet. And you got a memory card slot in there, and also a cartridge slot for Vita cartridges. Weirdly, it's got a like a power adapter as well. I'm pretty sure the brick on the power adapter is basically not far off the same size as the console. So it's, it doesn't exactly take up much real estate.
Can I ask, before you get into, I guess, how much did you get it for and where did you get it from?
I got mine from CEX. I'm not calling it Sex because that's stupid.
Yeah. Sex is stupid. You're right. More gaming.
More gaming. How much did I pay for it? I honestly can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was about 60 quid. Give or take. I think once upon a time they got down to about 40.
Okay.
And I remember umming and ahhing about it because they did not sell.
No.
Mainly because people looked at it and were like, well, you've got a handheld that you're now telling me to play through my TV. Why?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. So you can stream your PS3 or your PS4 to it. So if you've got it in a different room to your main console, you can do that. The downside is that it will kind of work like your Vita if it's not connected through the Ethernet. So if you're on the Wi-Fi, it's not going to be a great experience. The kind of big problem with it is obviously that the Vita itself, you have like gyro and touchscreen and all these bells and whistles. It's got none of them.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few games that are missing quite a lot of functionality, to the extent that when they released this thing, there was a bit of a whitelist and a blacklist of games that were going to work on it. Some of the games weren't on the list of compatible ones for a good reason. Like there'd be gyro controls, and you're not going to sit there shaking this thing underneath your TV or whatever.
Yeah.
But then equally, like Wipeout, I think that we reviewed a while back. That was one of the ones that you couldn't play on it, but there's no real reason why you shouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of games that you should have been able to play on it. Like even PSP ones, there wasn't much of a reason why you shouldn't be able to play it, yet for some reason you couldn't.
Yeah.
And then you compound that with how things have gone since with the online store and things like that. Like you can search for games on it, you will find them, but you can't purchase them because it will cheerfully tell you that you can't play them even though it's sat in the PSTV compatible section and stuff like that. Like the thing's a mess, basically. Like it's just got into this weird state of, I don't know, disrepair or something like that, or neglect even.
Shock from Sony.
I know. It's almost like they're trying to discourage people from using it or something. So when I got it, I thought, you know what, rather than just having like my UK account on it again and using the same old memory cards and all that kind of stuff, I thought, you know what, like it would be a good opportunity to set up an account from like America or Japan or something, try some slightly different games, see what's out there, and whatnot. Again, you kind of fall foul of the Vita's insistence on being attached to like one account. It's not like modern consoles where you can flip between user accounts and regions without too much hassle. So I thought, you know what, if I just get one set up and then leave it, basically. So yeah, I got an American account set up and started downloading some things. And yeah, there were some interesting bits and bobs on the store that I could still access that I couldn't get in the UK. And they play well. Like there's some good PSP games on there that I dragged out, and some like PS1 classics that I would never have been able to get in the UK, like Chrono Trigger. Like the port of that springs to mind pretty quickly. So yeah, it's it's okay. For 2023, it's okay. But we're talking like 5 out of 10, okay.
Right.
However, it is quite easy to hack. And you can do that from the console itself and stuff like that. And
to hack, press here.
Basically, yes, someone has set it up so that you can effectively do that. And the best thing about it, well, in fact, there's a couple of good things about it. I was still using my American account to buy and download games, but I was buying and downloading games that were on this blacklist. Yeah. So, in theory, it shouldn't have been able to run like the PSP version of Armored Core or a bunch of old PC Engine games and stuff like that. Yeah, there I was, happily buying and downloading them from the store. Because this quick little hacking process removed that arbitrary limitation.
Okay.
It also meant that I could customize, like you can use it with a DualShock 3 or a DualShock 4. DualShock 4 has all the functions of the PS Vita that the PSTV might be missing. And so you could set it up so that it could use gyro and could use the touchscreen stuff and could do this, that, the other.
Okay.
And not only that, but you could set it up so that you could customize the video options a lot more. So rather than looking at it all blown up and like poorly scaled and blurry and all that, you can bring it back down to a kind of sensible size to scale properly with the TV you've got. And it is really pretty to look at. Like Ridge Racer, PSP version of Ridge Racer, looks incredible on it. Like genuinely, it looks really, really good. And so as soon as you start getting into it, like I think you're easily getting up to like an 8 out of 10 kind of device. Like it is that much of a difference. And that's all stuff that Sony could have made it do out of the box.
Itself,
and it didn't. And it's, again, like I know I said this, episode 1, PS Vita, like it's easily one of the biggest devices for squandered potential I've ever come across. And this falls into that bracket completely. So I'm going to write those scores down before I forget.
Did you know that you could hack it before you bought it? Did you buy it with that in mind? Because it sounds like it makes such a vast difference.
It does, yeah. I had heard that you could.
Yeah.
I was apprehensive about doing it.
Yeah.
And so I sat tight. I did some homework. I did more homework. I looked into it. I had no intention of, doing it to load it up with, freely downloaded games and stuff like that. It was purely to customize like video output and stuff like that. And I absolutely stand by doing it.
Yeah.
I'd always ummed and ahed about it, but it took me a while to take the plunge. But then, like, I was thinking about this the other day, when I had the GameCube back in the day, I had the action replay and the freeloader stuff, and I was using that to, hack it, crack it, and play Japanese imports and all that kind of stuff. I guess I've got a long and storied history of buggering about with these things, lightly rather than hardcore modding.
Yeah, but I think it just speaks to that gaming community and network that we spoke about before that seems like a good idea to have around, especially when distributors like choose to let their consoles and paraphernalia fall into disrepair and they don't care about it.
Game preservation.
It's just,
absolutely.
It just seems a bit silly, and I know that Nintendo are probably the most, I guess, protective of their IP and things, but, it sounds like everyone is really, that isn't, apart from, Sony, who just a bit like, just use our old graveyard, but don't let us know about it.
Weirdly, that was the thing, because hacking it, didn't so much, mean that I was immediately downloading a load of homebrews and homemade ports of stuff, but I could use the fucking built-in store properly, Sony. I could actually use the device as intended.
Do you think they're kind of thankful that someone's done that for them?
Yeah, someone should be getting paid. Yeah. They really should. That's what I'm saying.
Free labour.
Yeah, absolutely. The fans have stepped up and fixed it.
Yeah.
And admittedly, there's a load of games that are disappearing from the store and all that kind of stuff. But there are a couple of good finds that aren't in the list as you scroll through it, but if you search for it, you can find it.
Okay.
There's a couple of PC Engine games that came out on the PSP that, I'd not played before. I think maybe I played one of them before, but the other one I just heard really, really good things about. And lo and behold, there's a way I can play it just by, getting into this system and actually being able to buy and download the game like from the legitimate store. It's ridiculous. It's an utterly ridiculous state of affairs.
So, just to clarify, me just being a bit stupid, then you don't need to own a Vita, do you? Or no. So you can. So effectively, you've got a games console for £60.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
Like it is a good console. Like you need a controller with it. That's probably
okay.
But if you've got like a spare PS3
DualShock 3, maybe what, £25 maybe or something. I think
that,
maybe
yeah.
£20.
So like it's as an entry level thing. I think like potentially cheaper than the Vitas. The modern ones?
Well, yeah, it would be,
maybe.
Yeah, Vita's knocking about for around £90, I think. Pretty much.
Well, there you go.
£100.
But the trick is that it is inherently more hobbled unless you hack it.
Yeah,
that's the problem, and that's how come I've given it 2 scores, because it is the difference is so noticeable, even in just being able to use it as the device that it actually is. So yeah, it's a weird state of affairs. But I'm glad that I got in and started tinkering with it. I'm glad that I tweaked those video options, and I will tell you why. Because one of the games that I was able to get hold of on it was Muramasa Rebirth.
I have heard of it. I'm nodding.
Oh my god, genuinely, it might be the prettiest Vita game I've ever seen.
Okay.
Genuinely, it's certainly one of my graphical favourites now. And it's great. So I know I've kind of quickly reviewed Dragon's Crown. I think when we were on the way to Slam Dunk or something like that.
You were like, it's the best game ever.
Yeah, great. Yeah, don't argue. It's great. So
no one remembers that day.
Bits of it. Muramasa Rebirth is made by the same people, Vanillaware, and it has a similar painterly style, but set in in Japan, in the kind of shogunate kind of times, and the map screen will look like wood carving, and some of the scenery you go past is just gorgeous. It is insane how good it looks. I think it was a slightly polished version of a game that came out on the Wii.
Okay. Do you know what? I think that's where I've heard of it.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
And I think I read somewhere that they went, okay, well, where we could port this to something, and they decided to go for the Vita originally because the first model had an OLED screen. They're like, that will make this game look good, and I can see why. It is gorgeous. It's basically like a kind of it's somewhere between a sort of hack and slash and like a Metroidvania type thing, all geared around forging a bunch of demonic blades and switching between them in a fight. You can carry 3 at a time. They've got some special moves, but the combat system is one of the most simple but kind of elegant that I've come across. And if you're talking Japanese sword fighting, simple and elegant is kind of a good good way of doing it. So you can mash the button to do quick attacks, or if you can hold it, you can hold it to defend, or while you're holding it, if you flick the stick, you kind of dash about a little bit like a ninja.
Okay.
But while you're attacking, you can also parry at the same time. So attack and defense is on the same button, and it just works so well. You feel like such a badass.
Yeah.
Swinging this sword around and laying into a group of enemies, and then realizing that you're automatically deflecting stuff that's being thrown at the back of your head.
Nice.
It is awesome for making you feel like a badass. And then you add in this art style, and you end up fighting more and more, supernatural enemies, or playful spins on, oh, you've got to defeat that giant, and it turns out that it's not a giant, but half of the fight plays out like it is.
Okay.
It has fun with it.
Yeah.
And it's really, really fun. I've not finished it by any stretch. It's quite a big game. I think the only sort of snag I've got with it is that there's quite a lot of backtracking, quite a lot of running when you've cleared an area. There's sort of these parts that play out almost more like dungeons, and once you've cleared most of them, you're not really fighting much. But when you're out in the real world, it feels like you're going on an epic journey. It does feel like you're on the road and traveling a long way, and having these encounters, and there's all sorts of kooky characters to bump into, and these kind of two storylines, and before you know it, the characters are just bumping into each other like almost randomly. It seems like you might go to a hot spring or something like that, and then the other character's just there. There's no like ceremony or anything like that. They just happen to be out and about in the same place as you for once. So like it's got a lot going for it. Might possibly be a touch repetitive. But then arguably you go in and you forge some new blades and get yourself some new moves, because that's basically the skill tree. Or you go and learn some new recipes and watch some lovingly rendered food like play out in front of you. Those animations repeat, by the way, and you can't skip them. You can just speed them up.
That feels like possibly a very recent thing that.
Cooking and crafting and stuff.
Yeah, cooking and crafting in games. Like, obviously, probably the most famous would be, obviously, Tears of the Kingdom and things like that. And, its predecessor, Breath of the Wild. But, even you think about Pokemon Arceus and stuff like that and everything. And then you even, sounds silly, but like Overcooked. Like, cooking in games is a big thing now. Yeah. I always find it like... I don't hate it. Don't get I sound like I'm going to go into some sort of tangent here. I'm like, it's such a stupid idea. It's not, but it's not something that naturally draws me towards video games. I'm like, I'm virtually cooking or virtually crafting.
No, I think some of them use it as a sort of shorthand for you are surviving in this world. And like the meals you cook being more and more like ambitious or appetizing is that sort of shorthand extended to you are surviving well in this world. Whereas here, like it does feel a bit redundant because you can buy items anyway, or you can find them in the world, or you can buy some items and find them in the world and then combine them to make slightly different items, which you can also sometimes find in the world or buy from a shop. So it does feel a little bit redundant, but it still looks gorgeous.
It looks really good. Good food.
So
quiche.
It's got a lot going for it. I think it's really, really good fun. It looks great on a big telly. And
what
would
size
highly recommend.
would you say you're playing that at to make it look good? Because obviously, was it just full definition?
No, so it wasn't the full telly because the
4:3. What's that? 4:3.
Our TV is quite old for like flat panel stuff. So when the PSTV was trying to blow everything up to fill up the screen, it was getting really, really blurry really, really quickly. So I play it scaled down to maybe about 2/3 of the screen to just try and help sharpen it up a little bit. I totally stand by doing it for this. It so happens that it plays well too. Don't get me wrong, over the course of dozens of hours I can imagine it getting a little bit wearying, but not so far. So I mean that's an easy 8 out of 10 for me.
Great,
I reckon. Highly recommended.
Muramasa Rebirth.
That's the one.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. Brilliant. So, again, I'm just kind of a little bit, not stunned per se, but I am like shocked a little bit that you're telling me that for... And how much did you pick that up for in the shop then, is it?
I think it was about 60.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. The game or the console?
Well, speak on how much you picked the game up for then. Sorry. I was speaking about PSTV.
I actually can't remember.
Okay.
It was in dollars as well. And I tell you what, I found out the hard way. Dear friends in America, I do not know how you do it because the price of anything on the store doesn't include tax, unlike in the UK. So the price you pay is actually higher than the price that's displayed on the screen. When you go into it. I mean,
no wonder they have to do their tax returns every year or whatever it is.
It's a baffling system. So and especially if you're buying like prepaid credit from PlayAsia or something like that, you've then got to do the maths to account for the fact that every time I'm paying this, I'm having to pay that much extra in tax. So it's
interesting that you've had that little insight into that. Yeah,
and it's annoying. I don't know how you guys in America do it. I really don't. I mean, I guess you wouldn't be having to buy the credit from PlayAsia for one thing. So yeah, fair cop. But yeah, I think the game was probably nearer $20, but plus tax. And then the console was 60 quid, give or take.
Shocked that you can have such a good experience for something that you can get.
I mean, it took a little bit of legwork getting the getting it cracked and all that kind of stuff. But then it was kind of, I kind of enjoy the problem solving element of it. Like, you know, like when I was talking about the Pico 8 and building bits and bobs before, like I kind of enjoy the process and the research side of it as well. So I dare say that actually probably the best game I've had on it so far was working out how to hack the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it was a worthwhile experience.
It just sounds like, so not, I'm not trying to make it sound like it doing anything wrong with the hacking and things like that, but certainly like a dark little corner of game consoling where it's almost like, you know, here's this thing that, like we said before, has fell into, you know, disuse, and it's almost, whereas actually it could be a really viable option to play some retro games and have that game preservation. So
I obviously, like, it probably falls into a pretty big legal grey area doing this, because, you know, there'll be all sorts of stuff about what you are and aren't meant to be doing with these systems. The thing with this, and I am going to get on my high horse with it, was that ultimately the reason I did it was so that I could spend more money on Sony's online store. And Absolutely. If anybody from Sony would like to come and have a discussion about that, they are more than welcome to.
I don't think they would.
I don't think they would.
No, I think they'd be fine with that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things.
They'll be like, oh, someone just bought something. What's happening
Funnily
now?
enough, right, on the store on my PS4, I've noticed that I can't filter based on PS Vita games anymore. And up until quite recently, that was how I was still buying things digitally, was through my PS4. So I can't help but wonder if someone's pegged, they're like, oh shit, someone's actually still using this option, we should probably turn it off. So yeah, like I'm under no illusions that some people would have, you know, hacked into the Vita in order to run all sorts of retro stuff on it. And I hear tell that it's quite good at emulation and stuff like that. But in my particular case, yeah, it is absolutely about like just accessing what by rights the game, like the console, should have been able to do, because it's the same fucking console as the one I've got in the pencil case in the other room. Like it's it's a ridiculous state of affairs. Yeah, no, it's Wi-Fi enabled. It's a ridiculous state of affairs, and obviously with like digital storefronts and stuff like that, it's only going to get worse with a lot of, I mean, there was that research recently about the sheer number of games pre-2010 or something like that you can't play or are endangered, which, you know, I think anything that can help alleviate some of that, surely for the good of, you know, the hobby, the community, is a worthwhile endeavour. But, you know, that's me.
It's interesting how you've just referenced that, and how many times I've heard in the retro gaming world per se over the last sort of month, everybody's citing that, that research, because it's almost like saying, it's 85 or 87% of games are like disappearing or something like that, retro games before the year 2010, and it's just like, but the fact that everyone is talking about it is because it's important to the retro, to the gaming world, to be able to have access to these things. That is in what, like, we want to be able to share them and keep them going, and I want to be able to share games with my children and my nephews and stuff and things like that, and just even, they might not ever be interested, they might say, Dad, please leave me alone in my bedroom for 1 minute. You know, like, son, get out. And I'm like, no, son, play this game. But like, the option needs to be there. It needs to be there. But do you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense for it to not be there. Like, why would the people who have the capability to, or hold the key of being able to play these games, just not open the door for everybody?
I think that's a fair point and a worthwhile discussion, because, like, you know, if you're I mean, I fully appreciate that, say, you know, license agreements for older games get murky, you know, famously so. But at the same time, like, between hardware failures or companies going bust and this, that, the other, like, surely there's got to be something that can be done. And this is why, like, Evercade and things like that, you know, that front and center say about just trying to keep some of these games going, and make them available in an affordable way for people. Like, I am all for it. And yeah, I think going forward, it is going to be a big point for the industry to look at, especially like, you know, the likes of Sega and the back catalogue they've got.
Yeah.
You know, I fully appreciate that they feel they can only monetize a portion of it to some degree, but then why not try? Mm-hmm. You know, why not try putting out some more of them, like a compilation of obscurities or something like that? See what happens, you know? But again, that's me. And I suppose, like, to go full circle, you know, you say about cloud gaming and stuff like that. If that takes off, maybe that's the option. You know, you just stick it on the cloud and do it that way. Mm-hmm.
Charge people a subscription.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that was a lovely little chat. Do you know what?
We went full circle.
I know. Yeah, exactly. You know, like, all right, this podcasting malarkey in the end. Do you know what? I don't think we swore in that episode.
Fuck.
No! Oh. Yeah, fuck. Right. On that note, thank you very much for listening to us, and we will see you again soon.
Cheers.
Cheers, bye-bye.